Why not? No, this one stands out to me. This video involves demonic imagery, unnerving sound dips, or clips, and depictions of heck. Oh, okay, so is each one of these like a different story? Alright, let's do it. Careful, everyone! Demonic imagery! It's about to get spooky!
The year is 1991. The location, remote Siberia, Russia.
Siberia,
a group of scientists are embarking on a drilling expedition
Siberia, I'm
to
pretty
dig
cold,
as deep can go. For 9 long,
Didn't I have my sweater with me?
grueling
I thought I had a
miles,
sweater
they
with me.
drilled straight down, further than any other man had gone before. However, when the drill hit the 9-mile mark, something peculiar happened. The bit began to shake and to convulse, as if it had hit an open cavern. The startled scientists began to check the readings from the drill bit. The thermometer read a whopping 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 times hotter than the temperature of lava. But that wasn't the most frightening discovery.
4 times
not by a long
hotter.
shot. Microphones attached to the end of the drill bit recorded the deafening sounds of what seemed to be screaming, wailing, and tormented crying from humans.
Whoa, so they're saying that they potentially got to, like, heck. Like, they accidentally, like, poked a hole into the ceiling of heck.
These horrifying sounds led to only one explanation. The scientists deduced that they had drilled directly into hell itself. What would crawl up out of that hole and what would become of this so-called well to hell has haunted those scientists and the Siberian backcountry for decades. And today I will be exploring this Russian legend, its origins, its real-life story, all that good stuff.
Well, it sounds like something straight out of
let's
the
hop
Doom
into it,
games.
shall we?
That's
This video is sponsored
Infinite
by
Heat right
no
there.
one at all. Actually, there's nobody. Just wanted to pop
That's
in,
Infinite Heat.
tell y'all to have a good day,
Infinite energy
and to
right
not
there.
stress over the small things that you can't control. Life is a river. Do not cling to its banks. Anyways, back to the video.
The freak? What
The
about
story
Life
I
is a
read
River?
you in the beginning of this video is a creepypasta from the late 80s and early 90s, which is really early as far as, creepypastas go. But as usual with these types of things, they're rooted in some sort of real life story, something that actually happened that made manifest this creepypasta. So today, there will be 2 parts to this video, the real story and then the creepypasta version. First,
Okay.
let's dive into
There's
the
a
real life
real
story
event to it.
of
All right,
digging
I
to
wanna
the
see.
depths of hell that actually happened. The Kola Super Deep Borehole, 1970.
Cola! I love it.
The Kola
What a great
Borehole
name
is
for a
the final
borehole.
name that's been given to a Soviet-sponsored drilling project from 1970. Just
Was it
like the
sponsored by
creepypasta,
Kola?
this drilling happened in remote Russia on the Kola Peninsula. Scientists began this experiment with one single goal in mind:
That's
to
why
bore
it's
the
named
deepest
Cola.
hole in human history.
It was in Cola.
I'm sure there's a your mom joke somewhere in here, but I can't find it. Drilling began on May 24th of that year using something called the Uralmash 15,000 drilling rig. This rig was normally used for digging really deep oil
Yeah, that's what I call
wells,
it,
but
too.
for the purposes of this mission, it was modified to dig even deeper. The machine would go on to dig for 9 years after its starting date. The diameter of the boreholes that the machine dug were
9
9
years.
inches, or 23 centimeters, and the deepest of these boreholes reached an astounding 40,230 feet, or 7.6 miles down.
Was there any
In
reason in
1979,
particular?
that hole became the deepest borehole ever reached by mankind. And then 10 years later, in 1989, it was named the official deepest man-made hole in history. Not sure why it took 10 years to do that, considering it already happened, but whatever. And to this day, it remains the deepest borehole dug by mankind.
What
Drilling
purpose
in
does
these
it actually serve,
boreholes
though?
was stopped in August of
Like
1994 due to lack of funding, which means for 24 years, it was all operational. As a result of these scientists digging borehole after borehole just to see and examine what was in the ground, the drilling revealed several interesting findings. Mainly, the lack of something called the basaltic layer that scientists had theorized were down near the 6-mile range. They thought that at 6 miles down, there should have been a thick layer of this basaltic stone, and there wasn't any at all.
Yeah.
Instead, there were many more hard rocks.
So in theory, on a scientific scale, does that mean that that theoretically, whenever we get to our planet's core, and we have equipment that can handle that kind of a heat, could we use that heat for energy?
And granites at much deeper depths than previously thought. Another unexpected discovery from this expedition was that there were water pools 3 to 6 kilometers deep in the ground. Again, originally, scientists didn't believe that aquifers could be this deep, and now they believe many exist even deeper. As I said, in late 1994, the project
so there might be
was
even deeper
shelved and
aquifers.
abandoned,
Got it.
mainly due to lack of funding, but also because the company that was doing it was liquidated and dissolved. And everything from the actual drill site, the machines, all of it was abandoned. The holes were capped off and welded shut with thick metal lids so no one could fall down or drop something down, and everything regarding the deepest hole of all time was forgotten to the histories. What is deep inside of the earth has fascinated people for centuries, and so many different experiments have tried to find the answer as to what is actually at the core of the earth, what is actually under our feet, miles below. The United States and their project Molehole was a similar expedition. The German continental borehole is a similar one as well. And recently, in 2023, China actually began to dig a super deep borehole into the Tarim Basin, looking for oil and gas and for scientific exploration. It seems that scientists from all around the world and all walks of life want to see what is below us, and they have this morbid curiosity as to what is at the core of our planet. And what secrets
because think about it, bro. That's a lot of energy.
As cool as the Russians are for simply digging a 9-inch hole 7.5 miles down, the findings were not as scary as the well-to-hell creepypasta implies, and the researchers certainly did not dig into hell itself. But it does beg the question, what's actually deeper than the hole they dug? What is below that 7.6 miles? Could we actually find the biblical hell, like the creepypasta implies, or is something far more dangerous and more macabre lying dormant down there that we shouldn't awake?
I would imagine
how
possibly
did a horrific story
the Earth's core,
like the well-to-hell creepypasta, come from a seemingly innocent drilling expedition by a bunch of cold Russians in the late 1900s? Let's examine the origins of that creepypasta and find out how it morphed into the very common tale that we know today. Sometime in late 1989, someone somewhere wrote a story similar to the creepypasta I read at the beginning of the video. A tale involving Russian scientists who stumbled into hell and recorded the screams of humans. These scientists tried to keep this quiet for decades, but eventually it leaked to the public. It's safe to say this story went viral, especially in the late 80s.
Yeah, they made it all
It quickly spread
extra.
its way across many Christian publications as well as broadcasting and other networks as well. All of these networks broadcasting the same story. The Russians dug into hell. What do we do now? With a network
what a
called
freaking
Trinity
name! What a
Broadcasting
title,
Network
though!
running the story with the ominous title, quote, "Scientists Discover Hell," end quote. The story was so successful that the network ran another broadcast with some new information about this mysterious hellhole. This new information was apparently that some of the geologists that were on the dig reported seeing satanic figures crawl out of the hole. And a quote from this addition to the story reads as follows. What really unnerved the Soviets, apart from the voice recordings, was the appearance that same night of a fountainhead of luminous gas shooting up from the drill site. And out of the midst of this incandescent cloud pillar, a bright being with bat wings revealed itself with the words in Russian, "I have conquered," emblazoned against the dark Siberian sky. With this new addition to the creepypasta,
that's a pretty
the
awesome
broadcast
little, like,
networks were in a frenzy. People across the nation
creepypasta for the
believed that
town,
Russia
though. It's pretty
found
sick.
hell
I love it.
itself. The popularity of this mysterious story was growing, and apparently, it seems that humans have always had a curiosity regarding hell, even back in the 80s. The Trinity Broadcasting Network, who aired this story, cited a Finnish newspaper as the original source for it. They say that's where they got it from, and they were just relaying the information. The paper was called Ammonusacea, but of course, that wasn't a real newspaper. That was actually some sort of evangelical magazine publication. And the original person who actually wrote this creepypasta into that magazine ripped it from a real newspaper called the Itella Sumen. That paper has a section specifically for publishings that are not moderated, and pretty much anything flies. There's no checks, there's no run-throughs or anything. It's kind of like social media today. That newspaper, anybody could post to it. So this story was written there because the author knew it wouldn't be taken down, and that's how so many people saw it and heard how we discovered hell. Then the grapevine phenomenon began with all that he said, she said stuff. And after the story of the well to hell made it to the USA, it had morphed into this gut-wrenching story that I read to you earlier. Many early critics of the story likened it to a tabloid newspaper article
where they literally freaking opened up a portal. I mean, like, to be fair, yeah, it reminds me of like the Doom story.
Was in cahoots
Very
with hell
similar.
itself. The story was also bolstered by the supposed audio recordings of mangled and tortured human screamings coming from that hole. And these supposed screaming noises actually ended up being fakes, of course, with some cleverly pasted audio clips making the scene more guttural, more loud, and more
enough, you know?
But in order to fully understand
I was getting like an 8
I would like
out
you
of
to
10
put
on Suffering. I
yourselves
needed
in
at
the
least a
shoes
9.
of the average person hearing the story from the late 80s. If you were in the late 80s hearing this story, you would hear that Russian scientists, you know, people that Americans didn't exactly have a great relationship with over the decades before.
What an amazing
several
freaking
reasons,
image
was drilling down
to show
into
it, though.
the core of Earth to greedily try to mine more minerals and irons when they
It wasn't even necessarily
due to their
about
own
that. It was
hubris,
just to prove that we
bored
could do it
into
better
hell
than them.
itself. After they retracted the drill
Look
bit,
up the Russia
demons
versus
and fire
American
and
science.
ash and
Like,
smoke
there's
ruptured out of the hole.
a lot of
and
it
were
was
released
literally
back into the
just
world,
America
and Satan's foothold
trying to be
was once
petty.
again reignited because of the Russians' pride. It would have been extremely scary, to say the least, especially with the fact that they didn't have social media and they weren't as desensitized to this sort of horror that we are. They didn't have creepypastafandom.com, and they didn't have Mr. Nightmare on YouTube narrating stories to help you sleep. That
What
level
a
of morbid
shame.
curiosity really wasn't a thing back then. So to some, it was real, and to most, it was a horrifying possibility. In a more recent and strange twists of events, another story popped up thousands of miles away in a completely different country about a so-called well to hell, claiming a never-ending hole
Another giant
exists where the screams of the damned can echo through the day and night. This well to hell is in Beirut of Yemen. It is
Is
a
that natural?
sinkhole that's around 367 feet deep, which of course is
Ooh.
a far cry from the deepness that the Russian borehole was. But the
Yeah.
difference is the opening and just the massive nature of this sinkhole is gargantuan. It's astounding, really. The hole was never explored
natural.
until 2021, when a group of 8 scientists rappelled down into it and captured some stunning footage from the inside. The Beirut hole is steeped in legends, and these legends
Look
have been
at
around
it!
for thousands of years. Some claiming that
Are
the
those like
pit
there's
is
like
where the
trees on
sinners
the
go to be
edges,
tortured for all eternity
growing on the
for
edges.
their misgivings. And others saying that this hole is the gateway to hell itself, and anybody who ventures down inside of it will die a gruesome death. There's water in the bottom of
Look
the
how
sinkhole as
massive
well,
it is.
and the water specifically is steeped in mythos and
My
legend.
team found snakes,
Whoever
dead
drinks
animals,
the
and
water
cave
will
pearls
die
inside.
horribly, or their
Ooh.
ancestors will suffer for it.
Ooh,
But the
snakes!
reason I bring this all up
I
in
didn't
this
think
video
about that.
is to show that humanity's fascination with deep holes in hell
deep
knows
holes.
no bounds. It
Yeah,
completely
humanity
different
has a
culture
big
and geographical area
big
believes in
fascination
the
with deep
horrors
holes.
of
I'll
the
be
damned
honest.
that
That's a
lie
fact.
inside of the hole. Just like the creepypasta from the Russian borehole says that they dug into hell. Both of the holes in and of themselves are not deadly fire pits, and both
They're
have
just
been
holes.
explored. But the more interesting implication is humanity's fear and the fact that we're terrified of what lies deep inside of the earth. Where does that fear come from?
But I feel like it's just like it's just like a classic I feel like it's been ingrained into culture to not quote unquote mine too greedily, so to speak. Because and I feel like it's because of the we were so reliant on like mines and caves and stuff like that for the majority of human history. You know what I mean? Because think about it, like we needed caves just as badly as bears did. You pick the wrong cave, and there's a freaking sleeping, hibernating bear in there. You know, you had to be cautious about these things. So it might be like this, like it might be this like old instinctual like fear of caves that we still got going on, being expressed in this way.
Surely
You know,
it began somewhere. Maybe our ancestors saw something and it was so horrifying that it scared itself into our genetic code. Who
cave
knows?
Bears.
This
It was
creepypasta and
cave
urban
bears.
legend, whatever you want to call it, is a great example of how things can be blown out of proportion. An
Yes.
innocuous mining
Like
operation
cave bears.
turned into a story of hellfire and brimstone, and digging into places that we shouldn't dig. It's not the first time or the last time that something like this will happen, but it definitely does make for a really cool story to get you thinking. Man's greed and man's ever longing to dig deeper and to go
What
higher,
is this
and
imagery?
constant desire to explore more and more, might eventually lead
That's
to
the
us
most
as a
horrifying thing
society
I've
digging
seen
into
so
our
far in
own
this video.
sort of hell. And whatever crawls out of that might not be very agreeable to us. I don't know, it's just something to think about. As the old saying goes, pride cometh before the fall. When will the greed of mankind end?
Even
So
like
that was the
like think about it. Even
well-to-hell
like the
creepypasta
storytelling
and
of like the
real-life
dwarves in
application and
Tolkien
story
was
behind it.
very
If you
similar.
enjoyed this breakdown, leave a like.
Digging
It's
too
free. It
greedily
helps
down,
push this
they
video out,
awoke
helps
the
push the
bell
channel out.
round.
I am aiming for 100,000 subscribers by May, because May is my birthday. And it would be amazing if you wanted to support the channel in any way. This is a passion
I don't
project
know how
channel
old- this
of
is
mine.
a pretty
It's my
old
third
video.
channel. I just love making these kind of videos on here. It's so nice to just make these documentaries. I love it. Lots more stuff
It's
coming
great.
in the future. So many things I'm planning, so many things I'm ready to create. Hopefully y'all are ready. Thank you for the amazing support. With all that said, tell somebody you love them. Life is too short not to. And remember,
Drop of a
pride
like.
is the worst human vice. Don't dig too deep and don't reach too high, because flying too close to the sun is as bad as digging into hell.
Okay, dropping the pause there. All right, drop a sub, drop a like. I'm gonna share the video. I think I may have already shared it on Discord. No barkies, baby. What you barking? Okay, I have not shared this one in particular. Bam, there you go. Thanks for hanging out. Like or dislike, comment, and subscribe, and become a Monodachi today! I live stream all day, Monday through Friday, so go say hi! That's all for now, Monos. Goodbye, and thanks for swinging by. Salut!